Welcome everyone to the Sister Stories podcast. This podcast's aim is to marvel at God's sovereignty over each of our lives as women and to encourage one another by sharing our stories. My name is Sophie and today I'm joined by Kim.
Hello.
Hello. So Kim, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
My name is Kim, obviously, sorry. And I'm married to Rory and we have 3 older teenagers now. Nathan, who's 15, Aiden, 17, and Emma's 19.
Great. And what do you do? Many things.
Yes. I work part-time for TnT Ministries. I'm just helping with the translation of Italian things at the moment. And the other part of my job, which I don't really think is ever part-time, is being a mum. And I've been homeschooling my kids. Nathan's just busy with his last few GCSEs now. And then I'll have done that job, so I can take that hat off.
Wow. That's quite a few years of doing that, isn't it?
Yes.
That's amazing. Great. So we're going to be talking about your journey to faith and your walk with Christ. But to start with, could you tell us about your family background?
Well, I was born and raised in Cape Town. My parents got divorced when I was 9 years old. My mum later got remarried and had another 2 kids. I do have an older brother. But we essentially, we weren't raised as Christian children. We had no knowledge of the Bible. But in South Africa, growing up, you would have quite a bit of religious education in schools and good stuff. But it was only, and I moved schools quite a bit when I was a kid. But it was only when I went to high school, that I fell in with a group of Christians. It was a cool school and it was like really weird because they had like a great club. It felt like a club that I wanted to be part of, but I always felt I was on the outskirts of this great club. So, one day Kristen, my friend, invited me along to a talk that the youth pastor was doing. And with a very vivid illustration that he used based on John 3:16, I realized that I'm a regular sinner and that I will be punished for that. And also the unbelievable miracle of Jesus' death in my place, that somebody would do that because I wasn't, raised in a home of unconditional love. So it was a completely new concept. So, so it was really.
Wow. Would you say that was, how can I say this? Surely there were things before that drew you to that group. So you said it felt like a club. Maybe it felt welcoming to be part of that Christian group or something. But were there other things that drew you to listening to the things that were being said?
Not
really?
Necessarily, but the girls did. They had that very warm love that you see in a Christian family, like at the church or like at youth group when it's my turn to bring the boys to Rooted, when Rory's not doing it. You can see that there's a real love of each other that I think is just incredible, and the world sits on the outside seeing this and not quite understanding what it is. But being a Christian and having a relationship with the Lord, you can see it's part of His family, how we show our love to each other, and it's just an incredible, intangible thing, I think.
Yeah, and you said that wasn't really present in your family, that love. So maybe that drew you to the group as well a little bit, or
yes,
would you say that's the case?
Yes, definitely. I had more of a foundation after becoming a Christian, but it was also really tricky because my family weren't Christian. So, so I mean, how do I go to church? And my mum was quite controlling, so I felt I couldn't even ask. But miraculously, my stepfather decided that we should start going to church. So we started attending a Reformed Evangelical church quite close by. And I never really got stuck into the youth group because it was still the entertainment model youth group. And it was just awkward. I did not feel comfortable at all. But, I went to church and I tried to learn as much as I could. And spent a lot of time with my Christian friends at school. They were running little Bible studies during break and so on. So I gleaned as much as I could out of that. So I finished school and wasn't quite sure what to do. So I decided to go to Bible college for 3 years. And while I was there, I realized that there's a real gap in the market for decent Sunday school material, because what we were using was really, all we were doing is raising morally upright pagans. So it was a bit useless. So, so I started getting involved in full-time children's work.
Wow. And you're still doing that at the moment,
yes.
aren't you?
Yes.
With Rory, obviously.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. So how did you two meet? Did you meet through that or?
It was matchmade. Rory's minister was a good friend of my senior pastor. So, at some big church meeting, he said to me, "Hey, there's this hot guy in my church. Very good with kids." It was so awkward. But anyway.
I'll edit this part.
Yes. Anyway, so, and of course Mike went back and told Rory the same thing. This nice girl in Cape Town who's good with kids. And when I first met Rory, I wasn't not really interested because, who does that? It's just too awkward. But the second time we spent time together, Rory came, because Rory was living in Johannesburg. He flew down to Cape Town to help me with my holiday club to be a leader. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But anyway. So, and he was really good. He was a strong male lead that I hadn't seen before. My dad was quite an absent dad and my stepfather was a bit useless. So it made quite an impact on me. Yes. And then one thing led to another and here we are.
Wow. That's great. So obviously you've made your way to the UK.
Yes.
You've been here quite a few years.
Yes,
I think,
13,
right?
yes. 13.
Wow, that's quite a while. So how did you come to arrive in Cornerstone and here?
That is a great story. Well, we'd been doing children's work because after we got married, we moved to Johannesburg, and Rory was working full time at a church there, and the church was growing quite quickly. So eventually they, after a few years, employed me to do children's work full time. And then we were there for a while, and we had used the TnT material that Trevor and Talia were producing here. We had invited them around a few times to South Africa to do training, and the second time they came, they took us out for dinner and asked if we'd like to take over the ministry here. So, wow. So I went, so when we got home, we said, because they were staying with us, we said goodnight and whatever. So as we were behind closed doors, I was all very excited. I said to Rory, let's go. What an opportunity this is. And then, because I just had visions of myself walking through Richmond Park, like in the setting of Pride and Prejudice. I'd always wanted to come here. So, yes, and then Rory said, "But my love," and then he gave, immediately off the top of his head 5 reasons why we couldn't come. And then within a week, all those reasons fell away. So it was clear, the Lord was clearly directing us in this path. Because we had said, we'd been here we'd come to England on kind of a holiday and met Trevor and Talia, and got a bit of material from them to take back to SA, and they had said, and as we were leaving, I'd said to Roy, goodness, wouldn't it be nice to do this full time? So it was just a number, the Lord leading us in an amazing way. And obviously moving here was hard, with the children crying for their grandparents, and there's nothing you can do. And it was really tough. Also like surviving on a South African salary until we could cope, to making ends meet, with the Rand pound exchange being a shocker. Not that it's ever got better, but anyway. But let me think. We knew we were coming to Cornerstone before we even landed here, because Rory had been to a few churches and had come away saying, when he came back home to Johannesburg, said like, he really thinks Cornerstone is the way to go. And then Tim Neal, when he was still at our church, and quite a few of the Cornerstone people, Tim organized to put a little video together welcoming us. Wow. So we received this video, and we all got all the kids, because Emma she was 6 and 5 and 3, so they all bundled onto our bed early one Sunday morning and watched the video from Cornerstone. And it was just so sweet. We had a few South Africans chatting. And they had made sure that there was a girl Emma's age being interviewed and a little boy Aiden's age. And it was just so precious. I had tears in my eyes thinking to myself, what a fantastic welcome.
Yeah.
So even before we came, we knew we were going to be part of an amazing family. It was just...
Oh, that's amazing.
It meant a lot to us, yeah.
Great. And so you've been leading the kids' work in Cornerstone for quite a few years. How has that gone throughout the years? How has that developed, would you say? We know we have a lot of kids at the moment.
Yes, well, it's just been amazing. It's not just because I've got a thing that I think about when I'm teaching is that we never know who the next Gladys Elwood or Don Carson or John Stott's going to be. It could be in our church. So we need to be doing for a number of reasons, but not least of all, a really good job of training these kids properly. There's no reasons why they can't get a really good theological education early on and start grappling with issues in a meaningful way. But it's not just the love that I have for the children and how grateful I am for the opportunity to be able to do what I love. But also getting to know the leaders and taking this journey with them, because there's something about serving with each other that's really fantastic. We're all in this together, striving to do the Lord's work. We're there to encourage each other. It's a great team to be part of. It's always a great joy. It's my best day is a Sunday.
Yeah. And it's encouraging for us to see the kids grow up and ask more questions and all of that, actually.
Yes.
So it's great, isn't it? I mean, I'm part of that as well. So
yes,
I'm very
of course.
Happy. Very happy to be. Great. Okay. And is there anything as you joined Cornerstone that as a Christian you felt the Lord taught you or was different from South Africa?
Well, one thing comes to mind, but I'm not sure if I'm answering the question. One thing comes to mind is that it's something that Fran said in the podcast that she did with you, is that you might all be speaking English, but it's a different culture. So we've definitely found that when we came here. But also I got to a point where I realized I felt personally that I was being selfish by expecting other people to understand me and to mind read how I'm feeling.
Yes.
So I decided to take on some advice and that a South African friend who'd been here for a while gave me, and I started talking about the weather.
That's a great move.
It's a great move because it made me realize it's not just quite frankly how people open up when you talk about the weather, which to me was a bit odd. But if that was what I had to do to try, and it was like an experience of having their perspective, having the British perspective.
Yes.
And also I had we were getting to know the Glens and we were very fond of them. But I was telling Maggie the story once. We were in my kitchen when we still lived in Kingston. And I said to her, I really found it hard. And I got to a point where I thought, let it not be about me. Let me actually just shut up and serve other people and be kind, and not make it about me. And then I turned around and Maggie was in tears, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've said something awkward that I've offended my British friend. Now what's happened? And then she said she knew that I looked like a nice person to be friends with. But probably due to the size of the church at that stage, people are coming and going. And she said that the people at church are getting to know new friends, foreigners, and then they leave. And it's really hard for the church people that are left behind.
Yes.
And I hadn't seen it from that point of view. So obviously I cried and then we hugged and whatever. But but it gave me a new perspective on how loving our church is constantly accepting new people with open arms, knowing that they might get hurt when those friends leave.
Yes.
Which again makes me love and appreciate our church very much. I've been meeting I meet quite a few non-Christians, and when they say about, was it really hard moving to this country? Now I say, well, yes and no. I'm part of a church family, so I'm fine. I have grannies and aunties and uncles and loads of children and lots of nephews and nieces. It's just very precious to be part of it, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, and I think that happened to me as well, coming to the UK, where from the beginning when I was a Christian, I felt that the church was my real family.
Yes.
Because my family wasn't Christian.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And then you come to a new church family, in a way, in a new country, but it still feels the same as when I was in church in France.
Yes.
And not the same exactly, but there are so many things that are the same.
They're transferable, yes,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So, I had an American pastor as well, so that might help. But in
Yes.
a way that, there were so many different, similar things, and that's why we can just rejoice that there are these different nationalities and that we have Christ in common, which is the most important thing to have in common,
yes.
actually.
Yes.
Which is why it draws us together so strongly.
Yes. And I sometimes also think that, some Christians are more exuberant in their in their personality and their evangelism and everything that they say and do. But I appreciate the quieter people as well, because I don't think older, wiser Christian women, for me, realize how much they've impacted me. I had to, as a new Christian, and even when I was doing children's work in Cape Town when I was new to the game, I looked at the older mums and I watched what they did very carefully, because I now had to learn what a Christian mother looks like, what a Christian wife looks like, different ideas of raising the children, what works, what doesn't work, what made it work. So yes, just the quiet, faithful, serving the Lord, being a wife and being a mother, doesn't go unnoticed.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what makes the church, isn't it? That
yeah.
we all need to do. We all have different roles in the church, but if we're not ready to serve and do that without grumbling and
yes.
all the faffing around that we can do,
yes.
I think that's it's not going to work, is it? And
No.
we're not going to have a church at the end of the day if we're not committed to it. Sorry, I said that slightly wrong.
No. No, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Great. So we've gone through quite a few different things actually, but I wonder if there are some specific lessons that you have learned, especially in these last couple of years, with COVID and all the disruption to things that we've had.
Yes. I suppose from a COVID point of view, nothing really changed in my house. Rory's still in his office at the end of the hall. Everything was pretty much a muchness. But one thing I did learn was that, I suppose one thing I did learn is that, if you're a wife and a mum, that's my perspective, you tend to absorb the family's emotions quite a lot. So while everybody is struggling with COVID, you're there to put your arm around them and to try and help them deal with it. So every now and again, I wanted to just explode with my own pent-up frustrations. So, and I'm not like big on exercise, to be fair. So, take Rory and I taking our obligatory walk around the block, just getting into exercise and to just notice the little things, like beautiful roses. I'll stop and smell the roses when I go for a walk, or just appreciate the rain or the smell of the rain. So I suppose it's using my senses, my God-given senses, to appreciate creation and to just try and focus on just getting from one day to the next.
Yes.
But also when things get difficult for my children, I have realized in the last while that I should take the advice that I give to them. because I've tried to do intentional parenting to undo how I was raised. I love Rory and I love them unconditionally, and we do all this. We read books to try and Christian books to help us to be good Christian parents, or do the best we can with what we've got available. But sometimes I find that when I give the kids advice, I don't take it on myself. Just the Lord's got this. You are not alone in this. God will strengthen you. All those things that I don't feel I deserve. But actually, I'm in the same boat. I'm also a child of Christ.
Yes, that's right. And I think it's the same when we teach the kids in Sunday school, that if we did not prepare the study for ourselves first, we wouldn't be able to teach them.
Yes.
Because we need to learn that. And that's why we are able to say to them, actually, I had to deal with this week as well.
Absolutely.
And I can show you what it looked like in my life to help you actually as a younger person.
Yes.
Or, and I think it's a great it's a great fact that we have that relationship with them. It's a great thing that we can encourage them and they encourage us in return, actually.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So in the same way,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. Which is why the church is so precious, because we have these different generations coming together that wouldn't necessarily talk to each other in normal life that much.
I know.
Sometimes.
I know. And it's normal. Churches, normal people having normal problems and us helping each other through them, which is just great.
Yeah. And so talking about that, is there any advice that you would like to pass on to younger Christians? I guess we've already mentioned a few things.
Yes. One minister's wife, because I did a stint of being a minister's wife for a while, and one minister's wife, I sat down with her one day and I said, I'm not the kind of person who has all these hundreds of goals and it's just too overwhelming. And then she put her hand on my hand and said, looked me in the eye and said, my dear, she said, look after your husband. And remember that your children are your first mission field. And I've never forgotten that, because I'm the kind of person who's completely overambitious. First on my list for jobs for the day is to save the rainforest. And then I'm bitterly disappointed if I can't do that. So then after listening to her and looking her in the eye and taking it on board, I thought to myself, you know what? Let me just try and make a difference in my corner of the world. So look after my family. And then use whatever gifts and talents God has given me to serve the church and to just chill, because I can't do everything.
Yes.
I'm just called to do what I can do in my little corner, and that'll be good enough.
That's right. And I think, we just called to follow Christ, aren't we? So at the end of the day, as you say, there's nothing we can do for our salvation or for much actually in our lives if we don't trust in him. So I think that's really essential.
Patient perseverance, following those that have gone before.
Yes, exactly. Great. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Kim.
No problem.
And thank you everyone for listening. That's it for today's episode of Sister Stories, but join us again next time.